Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So the race to world first is over. It has been for a couple of weeks now. Congratulations, Liquid, on winning the race again. I'm not here to talk about like the race itself, how disappointing the final boss was, or how weird the raid tuning was for Mythic or whatever like that. There's one thing I want to talk about today, and is why were there so many monks in Race to World First? Now, before the start of every season, I always like to do a little video, and I started doing this really with the War Within, where I kind of predict what monk specs we're going to see in the most highest end content in the game. Now, I don't play in that content, but I keep up with what's going on there. So even though I don't have like the intimate knowledge of things, I can make some what I would like to dub educated guesses, just based on the fact that I do a lot of class study in this game. It's one of my favorite, it's my favorite thing to research in this game, particularly obviously monk. And in my Season 2 prediction video, I predicted that we'd see Mistweaver 1, maybe even 2. And for Windwalker, I was like, I don't know if we're going to see any in the Race to World First guilds, because Mistweaver exists and typically you only bring one monk. I think I have a clip of that. I'll editor version of me. I'll stick that in here. So what is it going to look like for Season 2? I think Mistweaver Monk is going to be seen a lot. I think it's going to be one of the 4 healers that you see in your general Race to World First level comps, mainly because things like Resto Shaman and Preservation Evoker are not in the greatest spots. I think you're going to see, obviously, Disc Priest, Mistweaver Monk, and potential for Resto Druid, but I think those two are like almost locked in to almost every comp right now. Potentially Holy Priest as well, but I think Disc is just better with Barrier. Are we going to see it in High Keys and High Mythic Plus? Or, excuse me, High Raid and High Mythic Plus? I'm going to say no. I think that the way, again, Mistweaver Monk is probably going to be the biggest barrier for seeing Windwalker in the highest level of raid performance. But if you have a dedicated Windwalker player on your comp, I think you're going to be pretty happy having them around, because they're going to be solid. You may see 1 or 2 outliers, as you always do in most cases, but I don't think en masse, and that's when we're talking about this. That doesn't mean that the spec is bad. It just means that it doesn't fill a role that is valuable enough to bring 2. Well, let's just say I was very wrong. So I was partially right on Mistweaver, because I said that we would have you know, what, 6, or we would have at least 1, maybe 2. I didn't think we'd have as many as 3. And then for Windwalker Monk, same thing, we'd have as many as 3. And I kind of want to talk about why we would have as many as 5 total monks in the raid. And really the answer is actually very, very simple and straightforward, and that's tuning. Now, I kind of want to talk about it on an individual spec basis here. So we're going to start obviously with Windwalker Monk. You see I've got mine here. We're working on it here still. Just shy of 650. Freaking crest are killing me. And I think the biggest change that I think we all vastly underestimated from the PTR cycle was Windwalker's Mastery, which is on this page. So they buffed the living hell out of this Mastery. So prior to Season 1, Mastery was always like the 3rd stat for Windwalker. You would see a lot of like haste verse or haste crit being run in a lot of cases, depending on what stats and talent changes and stuff like that. Well, during the PTR for patch 11.1, they buffed Windwalker Mastery by 35%. And then when you combine that with our haste scaling through Momentum Boost, which is a very early talent, it's a situation where haste Mastery became the stat value for it. Now, Windwalker Mastery is basically, if you don't repeat an ability back to back, you gain a damage boost. Like, the next damage ability gains, more damage. Right now, I mean, like, I'm not even like full mastery out, and I'm at 53%. So when I Tiger Palm, So on the opener, for example, you will Tiger Palm and then Rising Sun Kick. Well, because I've activated combo strikes with Tiger Palm, that Rising Sun Kick does 53% more damage. All right, and then activate Storm, Earth, and Fire. You activate Zhuan, activate your Trinket, activate your Racials, hit your Potion, do all of that stuff. And then you usually use Tiger Palm again. That Tiger Palm's doing 53% more damage. And then you hit Strike of the Windlord. That's doing more damage because you're stacking this combo strikes. And it stacks up to 10 times to the point that you can hit Rising Sun Kicks for at our power right now. I mean, I've hit them on without damage vulnerabilities for like 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 million, and I've still got a lot of power to gain. So it's a very, very powerful stat. And in the past, you would only gain something like 20% damage, but they basically, because of the way the scaling works on Mastery, they basically gave us a huge, huge power increase. Now that said, Windwalker in raid situations is extremely powerful, and there are a couple of factors that I think play a big part in that. One, drinking Horn Cover makes it so that you have your Storm, Earth, and Fire out quite a bit longer, and because you are a good haste scaling class, you're able to get more chi spending abilities off because you can build faster back with Tiger Palm. Hit combo is also very powerful. Zhuan's battle gear is very good because you're constantly getting, again, these chi spenders back up on the ground, and then you get the increased crit strike chance off of both of these as well. And then Whirling Dragon Punch combined with Revolving Wind, combined with Dance of Chi-Ji, combined with Energy Burst, makes it so that you have a lot of chi to spend. And then on top of that, you get your tier bonus, which for Windwalker Monk is actually pretty good here. So you can see that Winning Streak makes it so that your Rising Sun Kick and Spinning Crane Kick have a chance to get more damage as it stacks up to 10 times. But then when you lose Winning Streak, your Fist of Fury gets a big boost of damage based on how many stacks of Winning Streak you had. And it has to be a full channeled Fist of Fury, so you're incentivized to never channel that. This has a big uptime. Now, I don't have any recent Windwalker logs. I'm healing raid this week because one of our healers is out for the week. He's moving. So I've been healing raid this week, but I know that from looking at past logs and stuff like that, Winning Streak actually on a lot of raid fights has about a 70 to 80% uptime. It's up a lot. Like, you're constantly getting another damage buff. So again, you're seeing just really a lot of Rising Sun Kick modifiers through the talent trees. So you're getting, you get fast feet, you're getting flat damage increase right here through Ferocity of Zhuan. You're gaining physical damage increase through Martial Instincts. You gain Acclamation. Ferociousness is giving you more. And then because through Teachings of the Monastery, which have, of course, it makes it so that your blackout kicks, which are also a big part of your damage profile, will increase your chances to reset Rising Sun Kick. So you're getting a lot. And even in this build, you don't take Rising Star, although you could. But that's mainly because something like Last Emperor's Capacitor is actually pretty good. But you can see, like, on Pharaoh Fox, who's our other Windwalker monk, let's look at his buff uptime, his aura uptime. Winning Streak for him was up 85% of the time, and this was on Sprocket Monger. So you can see, and he had hit combo up the entire fight. He never once broke it. And then he got, some good dealing in on his House of Cards. Like, he's doing, everything correctly. In terms of making sure he does that. Acclamation, 92% uptime. So, there's just a lot that's going on that allows for Windwalker to have really strong single target DPS. It also has decent built-in cleave. Obviously, Fist of Fury does a really good job with that. Dance of Chi-Chi with Spinning Crane Kick. That's decent built-in cleave. It is target capped, which makes it so that Windwalker's not the absolute monster that you could particularly see it being in AoE and Mythic Plus scenarios right now. But it is the strongest single target spec because of that. Combined with something like Conduit of the Celestials, which gives you really nice burst phases if you do need the burst. And it has like a free heal component on it with Jade Sanctuary. And all of these things deal extra damage. So like Strength of the Black Ox, when you Blackout Kick, when you get the Blackout Kick proc, you're dealing an additional almost 200,000 damage. Almost an additional 200,000 damage. Almost an additional 315,000 damage. Even something like this, you're gaining Rushing Jade Wind while your Juen's active. That's free damage. Even though you don't talent Rushing Jade Wind over here. So like, even here, you're getting, reduced cooldown on a lot of your main abilities. Rising Sun Kick and Strike of the Windlord being the big ones. So like, there's a lot of really, really powerful single target synergies that are built into this kit right now, which is why it caught a nerf. Now, I don't know if it's enough to like make Windwalker fall out of the raid meta as being the best melee, and not even close. I mean, the damage logs 1000% show that. Like, Outlaw Rogue is the only one competing, but then like there's a huge gap between them and Fury, Havoc, and Unholy, which has been on big time on the rise. Now, these are over the last 2 weeks. We're going to see more and more logs get planted in this week that will allow us to, over the next week or two, that will allow us to see just exactly how much the nerf impacts things, even though they did buff Slicing Winds, which is weird. But yeah, Windwalker Monk, it's very, very rare for them to be up here without some broken interaction that goes on. I think the Bone Dust Brew, Spinning Crane Kick, Necrolord build from Shadowlands. This is just because they straight up, it's tuned really, really well. So, other factors, Windwalker is also very, very mobile. Between Flying Serpent Kick, Transcendence, and Roll, there's a lot of mechanics that Windwalker can handle without losing a lot of DPS uptime. Transcendence allowed for some cheese on some mechanics later in the fights, I think with Muggsy in particular. And so they just bring a lot to the table in terms of mobility that allowed you to handle mechanics in a way that was very satisfying. And if you had to do like big boss moves or whatever, Windwalker, you can just roll with it, quite literally, and handle things. So it's just a very, very effective spec, in a lot of the fight design really favors what Windwalker can do. That is never a bad thing. So yeah, that's why we saw as many as 3, potentially, I think even a couple of groups ran as many as 4 Windwalker monks. Now, Mistweaver Monk, it boils down to the same basic thing, tuning. But the big thing that Mistweaver has going for it over other healers, now you saw things like Resto Druids and Disc Priest clock its way into world first comps with Liquid and Echo both, because you needed A, the buffs, and B, they wanted the profile diversity. But at some point, Mistweaver just had everything going for it. Now again, here's the raid build, and there are some variations to this that were being played. I did see a Jadefire Stomp Mythic Plus build style being run as well for even more damage, and I've been seeing that build played quite a bit. And I've also seen the Sheelan's Gift single target build with you run Sheelan's Gift, Veil of Pride into Emperor's Favor, which makes Sheelan's Gift a extremely powerful like lay on hand style ability on a single target, so it's good for tank healing. So in fights where your tanks just get absolutely crushed, you could easily swap into that talent build, no issues at all. So there's some variations that you can play in the build, but again, it comes down to really just tuning. Even though Mana Tea was nerfed, Windwalker is one of the more mana efficient healers, Disc Priest really being the other. When you consider Mana Tea into something like Life Cycles or even Energizing Brew, but a lot of people have switched over to Life Cycles now. You run Rushing Wind Kick, which at 62,000 mana, for me at least, when my mana pool is, it's over 2 million, like that's barely a blip on the radar in terms of mana costs. And then you infuse things like Secret Infusion, using them on Enveloping Mist, using it on Renewing Mist to give you even more haste, even more crit, which are the stats you favor, or very powerful defensive and Expel Harm on yourself to give you even more verse, like you live forever. You have the ability to Again, be super mobile. And then just with the way that they were tuned, they did a lot. Another big factor that a lot of people underestimate, as you can see from the healing statistics, it's right there with Disc Priest in terms of healing output. Resto Druid and Resto Shaman both keeping up pretty tight. Notice the 3 healers that got the most significant buffs were lagging behind in the HPS department. But the thing that really makes Mistweaver stand out in Raid is this. Now, this is at 95th percentile in Mythic. Like, Disc Priest normally is the one that leads the charge on this, with Holy Paladin and Mistweaver Monk kind of being second and third, just because of the way the kits for those specs work. You've never seen a gap like this. I mean, just from score standpoint, you're talking 13 points. I mean, that on a percentage level is roughly 20 to 30% more damage that Mistweaver was doing, even over Discipline Priest, which is historically the damage healer. And, like, you just got so much free extra damage on bosses by running 2 or 3 Mistweavers that you just don't get as you would for running double Disc, double Holy, as was a historical comp that you run. So the fact that they really massively nerfed damage on Mistweaver Monk should not have been a surprise. They did tweak a little bit of the healing, did some Mythic Plus quality of life buffs though, which is nice. Mistweaver Monk is not actually dominating, again, the Mythic Plus scene. Disc Priest, Resto Druid, and Mistweaver Monk all competing right now to be quote-unquote the meta healer. Paladin recently got buffed, and so a lot of people think it's going to be one of the best key healers again. So, I mean, 4 healers really out of the 7 healers in the conversation to be in the Mythic Plus meta means that the healing comp is really, really good. It's just they were an outlier in Raid, and in an event like Race to World First, where you want to maximize every point of damage and every point of healing that you can do, it just made sense to class stack Mistweaver Monks. Now, for your average Raid team, you might only have 1, maybe 2 monks that can play Mistweaver. I mean, most guilds don't even have more than maybe 1 dedicated monk player. So it's a little unrealistic for every other guild on Earth to do what Liquid and Echo did, and Method to a lesser extent as well. That being said, you probably want to find yourself a dedicated monk player in your raid, whether you're even at an AOTC level, just because the buff is still valuable. It's not very good anymore from a percentage standpoint and how much it contributes, but it's free damage. But Windwalker's still, I think, the best single target spec. Outlaw's the only one that could potentially compete with it, and it's got a bug trinket interaction that's causing that right now, as far as I know. And then, or a Mistweaver Monk, because, again, they're just very strong. They still contribute a lot of damage. Revival's an awesome raid cooldown. Conduit in the raid build is an excellent way to have a second raid cooldown. You launch, you have 3 really good cooldowns to handle damage events. And in fights that are very hectic, things like, as far as I've done on the heroic level, like Sprocketmonger has a bunch of damage events going out at once, so I'm always kind of cycling through those cooldowns. Muggsy on Mythic is a big one there. Sprocket on Mythic is another big one. One Arm Bandit has a lot of healing going on, even though Liquid 3 healed it. They have a level of coordination that most other guilds don't. Most guilds are going to run 3 to 5 healers on that fight. Mistweaver being your 4th or 5th healer, if you don't have one in your raid team already, is going to be very, very valuable. And so, like I said, bare bones, it's tuning, but there were very specific aspects that also were contributing to make Mistweaver Monk by far the most stacked healer in the raid. And you haven't seen more than 1 monk in a raid in quite a long time. I don't think there's been a single raid tier since I've come back, which was a BFA when they started streaming the race, when Method started streaming the race. I don't think there's been more than 1 monk consistently in the raid group for the majority, I would say 5 or more of the raid fights since I've come back. And so this was a great early tier for Monk. Obviously they caught some nerfs, I think deserved, frankly. Nerfs. Brewmaster was pretty much left alone. They did get a small damage buff. I don't know if it's enough on that front, but Brewmaster was not really anywhere to be seen as I expected, because Mistweaver and surprisingly Windwalker were so damn powerful that you needed to use your tanks for other other raid buffs because you were stacking monks. So Like I said, overall, I think this was a great tier for monks. If you enjoyed watching that, you want to see more monk gameplay in this high level comp world. As we get closer to things like the TGP coming up soon, signups went out for that very recently. Are we going to see monks playing in that situation? I don't know. You could potentially see Brewmaster playing in with the way that the rules are set up. With basically they're banning us, the most played spec on the first 2 days going into the last one. So you might see some people play like a Brewmaster for a key or two just so that their true meta tank, which right now is looking like Vengeance Demon Hunter, doesn't get banned. And so there's a possibility you could see Brewmaster around, but I don't think it's there. But that said, Brewmaster is way better this patch than it was last patch. It's definitely living much better. It's just not doing any damage. We'll see how this 3% buff does. I don't think it's enough to the point that I'm actually playing around with a Shadow Pen build. Windwalker I don't think you'll see because it's target capped, and outside of a dungeon like Theater of Pain, where you have to run a very specific comp that also enables it, where you'd run like Bear Druid. You could run Bear Druid, Disc Priest, and then I've seen comps like Windwalker, Hunter, Warrior. You could see Rogue Warrior, Windwalker, things like that. Like Theater of Pain is like a dungeon that Windwalker really excels in because it's a lot of small pulls, and Windwalker, being target capped like it is, would excel in a situation like that. But in a dungeon like Cinderbrew Meadery, where there's a pull that pulls that you do where there's 18, 19, 20, 21 mobs in a pack, you're going to see something like Unholy DK, Enhancement Shaman, and then of course Wizard specs end up being much more prevalent. Mistweaver I think you'll see off and on. It'll depend again on the group comp and what the healer's comfortable playing. So I think we're still going to see monks in these high-end competition level type stuff, but they have been brought back down to earth just slightly, and I think that they should have been. So if you like this sort of content, to make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel that this is going on. In the future, these types of videos are actually going to first go up on my Patreon page. It's been rotating over there, so go check that out. I'm in the process of revamping it to just a single subscription tier for the moment, and then I'll add more as we go on. My plan with Patreon going forward is that I'm going to use it for early access videos that are maybe not guide videos, but are things that are me talking more esoterically about the game, and then eventually they come over to YouTube. And I'm going to use it as a way to talk about like day in the life blogs. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm going to talk a lot about particularly men's mental health, but mental health in general. Give behind the scenes of what my life looks like as a late 30s divorced dad, whatever, things like that, just as a way for me to have like an outlet to put these things. And if the stories that I have to tell are hopefully helpful and impactful on you, then I would love that. But it's just a place that I'm going to start doing those things. So if you want to support over on Patreon, you can definitely head over that way. Subscribe to my Twitch stream. That's completely free. Well, following it is free. If you want to subscribe, I would love it. But again, I never require it. I do have a full-time job. While my money's not great right now, I'm surviving. But if you want to support in any other way, I'm not going to be upset by it. And I would truly appreciate it if you make that decision in your life. So until the next video, I hope you all stay safe. Hope you're enjoying yourself. You're having fun. You keep on playing great games. And we'll see you in the next video.